Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the latest Experience UK webinar, which is looking at the experience economy in Azerbaijan, looking at opportunities for UK companies working in the creative economies and looking at how to do business in Azerbaijan. And I'm delighted to be joined today by colleagues from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and the British Council in Azerbaijan. So welcome to Joel Derbyshire, Country Director for the British Embassy in Baku, to Elvin Raziyev, Trade Officer at the British Embassy, to Nargiz Hajiyeva, the Country Director for the British Council in Azerbaijan, and to Dilara Ibrahimova, who works with Nargiz on the cultural programming side at the British Council. So welcome, and Jim Broughton, a cultural consultant from here in the UK with extensive experience working internationally. So welcome to everybody this morning, and thank you so much for joining us. So over the course of the next hour, we're going to be looking at a kind of general country overview, looking at how to get business done, looking at emerging opportunities for the museum, arts and cultural sector, and the wider leisure and entertainment market. We're going to share some insights from a recent trade mission to Azerbaijan and have an opportunity for some Q&A questions at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Joel Derbyshire, who's going to kind of introduce from a top-line perspective his perspectives on this area in Azerbaijan and how the British Embassy can support UK companies.
Thank you very much, Emily. Hello, good morning, everyone on the line. My name is Joel. As Emily said, I'm the Director for Trade and Investment in Azerbaijan, and my job is to help British companies be successful here. And there are a number of ways that we do that. One of those ways is around just sharing information, like we're doing on the call. And we also do a variety of opportunities for you to meet some of the buyers that we have in the market. And I think Elvin's going to talk about an upcoming opportunity that may be of interest once we've gone through some of these slides. So Azerbaijan as a country is really interesting. It's a mixture of East meets West. One of the things that will strike you in Baku is the contrast in terms of some of the architecture. We've got some of the very beautiful old Soviet buildings. You've got buildings that look a bit like Dubai. And a kind of some very, very modern museums like the Heydar Aliyev Center, which was built by designed by Zaha Hadid. Azerbaijan as a country is not particularly well known outside of oil and gas in the UK. It's probably known most for oil and gas and also for its conflict with its neighbour. But I think it's a country that you'll be hearing a lot more about over the next 12 months. As it is hosting COP29, which is the biggest event of any kind in the world, the big climate change conference hosted by the UN. And I think you'll be hearing more and more as we kind of go through that. In terms of the market and the location, it's a really interesting country in terms of its location. So you probably can't see on the map, but it's got Russia to the north. And Iran as neighbours, so it's in an interesting perspective, interesting place geographically. And when I talk about kind of trade flows and its kind of importance in the region, it really can't be understated. It forms part of the middle corridor, which connects east with west. And from a kind of Iran perspective, it's quite interesting. Azerbaijan is a Muslim country, but has very strong links with Israel. Its relationship with Russia is also interesting. So it's one of the least economically dependent states on Russia, which means that Russia has less leverage here than perhaps in some other former Soviet states, and that's due to its oil and gas wealth. It's offered to support Ukraine in terms of humanitarian support, but it also doesn't want to become the next Ukraine, so it has to play a kind of careful balancing act. Armenia is also to the west of the country, and you probably may have seen articles in the press about some of the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia. I will simplify this slightly, but it's worth, if you're interested in talking in our market, perhaps having a separate discussion, because some of the politics are complex and it's easy to misunderstand. So the UK and the United Nations and other parties have always recognised Azerbaijan's sovereignty in its land, and this includes the territory that it lost in 1994 to Armenia. And the land is referred to differently. It has different labels, which makes it quite confusing. So you will hear the term Nagorno-Karabakh, you will hear the term the Karabakh Economic Region, you will hear the term the recovered territories, and the Azerbaijanis use the term the liberated territories. But these are all terms that, from a kind of UK perspective, we make quite strong distinctions. So we tend to refer to the territories as the territories that recovered in the 2020 conflict, which we often refer to as the recovered territories, and the territories that were recovered most recently in September last year, which is often referred to as Nagorno-Karabakh. And the recovered territories is an area that was essentially, there was no one living there. It almost acted as a kind of bunker to protect Nagorno-Karabakh. So the area that was recovered in 2020 is in the process of being demined, and there are different British companies and NGOs that are working to reduce mine clearance in Azerbaijan. Mines are a potential trigger for conflict, so we see it as a really important part of the kind of reconciliation process. The peace process has really kind of accelerated recently, so you may have seen this week that Armenia gave back 7 villages back to Azerbaijan. This is the first time that any territory has been given back in a peaceful way. And Pashinyan, the Prime Minister for Armenia, was talking about this in the context of trade. So he was saying that he doesn't want his people to be scared that Azerbaijan is recovering its territory and therefore getting closer to Armenia. He wants to look across the border and for Armenians to kind of see it as an opportunity for that to increase trade. And we see trade as a really important part of the kind of the peace process. So we've had ministers here, and it's the role that trade can play in terms of reducing tensions, in terms of building relationships. It's been a message that we've really been keen to push, and demining is a really great example of that. So you've got NGOs that are active here, and you've got British companies that are also working with those NGOs. So it's probably worth talking to us in a bit more detail if you want to understand the basics. But that is a very kind of high-level overview of how we see the situation on the ground. Next slide, please. So, in terms of the UK's trading relationship with Azerbaijan, it's very strong. The UK is Azerbaijan's biggest foreign investor. It has been for the past 30 years. Depending on the numbers that you look at, there's between 200 to 400 British companies on the ground. Most of them are in the energy sector, perhaps unsurprisingly, but that is changing. Our team doesn't support oil and gas. We are focused on supporting Azerbaijan to diversify its economy. And to give you an example of that, last year we helped British companies secure over £200 million worth of export wins in Azerbaijan outside of oil and gas. In terms of its neighbours, it's very strong with Turkey, and Elvin, who we'll talk a bit later about the creative industries, is also responsible for infrastructure and building relationships with Turkish companies, which are very, very strong in Azerbaijan. We've also seen examples of British companies use Azerbaijan as a kind of regional hub. So, for example, there's a British infrastructure company here called Sunbury Heights, which relocated due to Russia-Ukraine. It was previously based in Moscow. It moved to Baku about a year or two ago, and it's been successful in terms of winning business in different parts of the region, using Baku as a hub. The transport here is pretty good. There were kind of 6 direct flights to London a week, and there were just generally pretty good connection. Azerbaijan has the strongest transport network of the countries in the region. A lot of money has gone into rail infrastructure, road infrastructure, and it's generally quite strong in that area. There are some tips in terms of how to kind of do business in Azerbaijan. I won't go into them. I won't read the slides out loud, but it is quite a relationship-based market. So it does often require companies to come to market to meet people and to continue that relationship, to continue that ongoing relationship. And I think the other thing to be aware of is that things take time here to materialize. So there are kind of projects that we've seen in my time kind of take, some do happen quickly, don't get me wrong, but some projects have taken longer here than other markets. They just need a bit more nudging. It's a bit more of a top-down approach. And that's why kind of relationship building and visiting the market is a really kind of, if there's one thing you do, if you're interested in the sector, it would be to make an effort to kind of meet people. And there is an opportunity that Elvin will talk about a little bit later where you might be able to do that. So that's a general overview of the market. And I think I'm now going to hand over to Elvin to tell you a little bit more about some of the opportunities that we see here. So Elvin, over to you.
Thank you so much, Joel. Welcome, Elvin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elvin, and I am infrastructure lead at the British Embassy Baku within the DBT team. And in my part, let me change the slide. Yeah. In my part, I will talk about the opportunities in Azerbaijani market, and I will give a little bit more information about each of them in the following slides. So basically, I can start here in this slide, opportunities for creative industries. So following strong drop in oil prices in 2015, Azerbaijan focused more on diversify its economy, and as a result, decided to improve its tourism capacity. So although many actions were taken throughout last years, but there is still a huge need for developing tourism infrastructure in the country. And talking about tourism, so it's very linked with the country's culture and heritage. So Azerbaijan has a large and diversified culture, as you have seen on Joel's presentation. Country located intersection between historic east, west, and north, south roads, and one of them is ancient Silk Road, which today holds the capacity to serve as a middle corridor. So because of this cultural diversity, Azerbaijan has a lot of opportunities in cultural and heritage side. There are over 200 museums in Azerbaijan, and UNESCO's list of intangible cultural heritage from Azerbaijan includes 23 events. However, this capacity doesn't create decent economy in comparison to its potential. So tourism and culture are the two main pillars where the Experience UK's members can find a lot of opportunities in Azerbaijani market. And in addition to that, developing family entertainment and adding value to major events could be another useful options for Experience UK's members. So last year, Emily lead a delegate from the Experience UK members. So we had a multiple series of meetings in Azerbaijan with the key stakeholders. So they basically had the chance in reality, what are the main chances in Azerbaijan, what are the main sectors, and how you can develop these relations to move things forward. And addition to the family entertainment, we believe that Experience UK members can add value to the major events happening in Azerbaijan, because country has been hosting Formula One since 2017. But during our talks with the senior leaderships who are responsible for organizing these events, and they mainly complains about its economic return, and economic return is not satisfied. So other example, COP will be held in Azerbaijan this year in November, and it will be the biggest event that any country has ever that Azerbaijan has ever organized. So now I will give a little bit more information about these opportunities in the next slides. So the first one is creating international tourism destination. So there is a state tourism agency who is responsible to develop countries' tourism capacity, and they created a framework to develop tourism capacity between 2023 and 2024. And this framework defines the strategic vision, guiding principles, envision tourism development, focusing social and economic outcome of this development, such as having quality and quantity matching with tourism needs, and decreasing gap between capital Baku and its regions, which support emergence of the new regional tourism destinations. For example, I can give you a few examples here. Total revenue comes from the tourism sector is equals to 2.3% of the total GDP, which is country. The responsible authorities are working on it to increase it up to 5% during the following years. So that's why they are planning to create extra additional tourism destination all over the Azerbaijan, not just in Baku. For example, Shaki is one of the city in Azerbaijan located on west north of the country, and Shaki gives this very great sense from cultural and nature of its potential. Shaki is surrounded by the mountains and a lot of examples from cultures. You can see on the top right of the presentation, which is the Shaki Khan Palace, is a good example of nation's heritage, and with it is extraordinary designing and beauty. So similar like Shaki, the state tourism agency working on other regions, developing many tourism attraction in these regions. Another example I can tell you that the Khanalik is also on UNESCO's heritage list, and is natural example is great natural example of ecotourism. However, there isn't enough number of infrastructure to promote itself. Of course, there are some high-end destinations like Shahdagh and Baku. Shahdagh is the mountain on the north of the country where there are few infrastructure for ski resort and winter tourism, but I believe it has more potential than what it has right now. So I will move to the next slide. The family entertainment. Next slide, I will talk about the family entertainment. It's also a huge part of the culture. People, especially in Baku, have the limited options where they can spend their time with their family, with their kids. Especially in the regions, there are just less than 1, 2, 3 options in all over Azerbaijan. If anyone lives in regions of the Baku and regions of Azerbaijan, they have limited options to take their family and spend nice time. But in Baku, we have the few examples. I just list them here to give you the sense what are they, how they work, or how they didn't work. For example, the first one is the Kinderland. Kinderland is Azerbaijan's first educational park, and this is like a small version of the Baku. You can see the plan or map of the Kinderland on the right top side. And another is Dreamland Golf Resort. This is one of the place when Experience UK delegate came to Azerbaijan last year. We went there and they have the chance to see visually how is the place. Although they put huge golf infrastructure and some private houses there, but the economic return also not enough satisfied, and there are a lot of room to develop. For example, this year they opened one trampoline center inside the Dreamland Golf Resort. I think that's the one of the most visited attraction in this huge land. Also, I can say that there are a lot of high-quality hotels in Baku: Four Seasons, GW Marriott, Fairmont, Ritz-Carlton. But because of its prices and they have very less load factor, so they could be an opportunity to create alternative entertainment for the people who lives in Baku. So the infrastructure is there, the building is there. They just need to add extra entertainment, or which could be the good opportunity to collaborate with Experience UK members. And there are another option is the aqua park. There is only one aqua park in Azerbaijan and in Baku, and there is one sea breeze resort where you can spend summertime with your friends or family members, etc., etc. So I think that's another gap where Experience UK members could work with Azerbaijani stakeholders to develop relations. So next slide, I will talk about the major events taking place in Azerbaijan. As I mentioned previously, Formula One has been organizing in Azerbaijan since 2027. Now we're hearing that the senior leadership of the Formula One Azerbaijan, they are meeting with British companies and other international companies to add value, to increase its attractiveness and attract more people to watch Formula One. So also COP29 will be another option where your members can add value to Azerbaijan organizing committee and another options I can say that concert, for example, Azerbaijan organized Imagine Dragons concert just 6-7 months ago, and where Azerbaijan had a lot of tourists, not from Central Asia, Middle East, Russia, and former CSI countries. So organizing such kind of international events or concerts or adding extra entertainment, such kind of huge events, kind of organizing side events will bring more attraction. Will make this attraction more. Will make this event more attractive. And this slide, you will see the list of the main stakeholders in Azerbaijan. The first one is the Minister of Culture, and they have the special department for preservation of the national heritage. And State Tourism Agency is also another government body who they are responsible to develop the tourism infrastructure of the country. State Committee for Urban Planning, they are now responsible for capital Baku's master plan, where it could also include some entertainment center in the Baku. So also I can say that mayors and EXCOM in the regions and development of Nakhchivan, Shusha, and Goychar will be the good opportunity for Experience UK members. Haydar Aliyev Foundation, also another stakeholder. It would be useful to start discussions how your services, your offerings could be valuable for them. And here you can see the few private stakeholders which could also be useful. Next slide. Last week, together with Joel, we had series of meetings with these stakeholders, and we gave them information about museum and heritage show is going to happen in London in May, and some of them already came back to me and said that they would like to attend this show where we think this show will be a good opportunity to bring Azerbaijani delegation to attend, and also together with Experience UK we can organize some kind of side events to show your expertise and experience you have already done in the UK. So currently Minister of Culture confirmed that they will attend to the meeting, and now we are discussing if Minister himself will attend or not, because there is a little bit risk. At the similar in May, there is another major event is going to happen in Shusha, which is called Haribolville Song Festival, where the president and other head of states joining this event. And if the final date of this event is not announced yet, but last 2 years it organized sometime between 10th and 15th of the May. But if this year they organized the event before Museum and Heritage Show in London, and it's possible to bring a senior delegation from Azerbaijan as well. I think that's it from my side. Thank you, Emily. And we put Q&A session here, but I think Nargiz is going to present about British Council services. Maybe we can do the Q&A session at the end.
Amazing, Elvin. And thank you to you and thank you to Joel for those really comprehensive presentations. And it's very exciting to hear that there's an opportunity around the Museum and Heritage Show for Experience UK members to engage with the people who are making the decisions in the cultural heritage side. So thank you so much. So now it's great to be able to welcome Nargiz Hajiyeva from the British Council. Nargiz has worked extensively to promote British arts and culture within Azerbaijan, and she and her colleague Dilara have really been the people to spearhead our sector for many years from an arts and cultural perspective. So it's great to hear your perspectives on the creative and cultural opportunities and Azerbaijan as a creative hub.
Thank you very much, Emily. Thank you for the kindest introduction, and thanks to my colleagues Joel and Elvin for excellent market overview. So my slide is called Azerbaijan as an emerging creative market. This is how we really see Azerbaijan. We do believe that there is a big market, but it's yet emerging. We have been on the ground for 30 years. So last year we celebrated as British Council our 30th anniversary. And of course, our main goal, as Emily rightly mentioned, is building connections, understanding and trust between the people in the UK and countries worldwide. And how do we do that? Of course, we do that through building opportunities and connecting the people of the UK and other countries. And that does include cultural relations, educational opportunities, that does include various programs that we have worked throughout the years. So to bring examples of those programs that we have done in arts and culture, so you can see the long list. A lot of these programs have creative as a part of their name. So as a part of creative economy, we've actually done policy forums, and we've supported high-level officials in their visits to the UK, attending various high-profile meetings and signing an MOU in the UK between British Council as well as the Ministry of Culture. We've also developed a strategy on creative industries and action plan and the roadmap for the development of creative industry sector. As a part of the Crafting Future, a number of modules have been developed for the sector of crafts, and we work closely with Vocational State Agency, where we trained the teachers, as well as we work closely with the Plymouth College, currently called the Plymouth University of Arts. We've conducted British Film Festival, of course, bringing film industry to include BAFTA Short Film Festival to Azerbaijan throughout the years. That work continued with BAFTA last year. We are broadcasting Selector Radio and Selector Pro every Saturday with our local partner, Hazar TV. And of course, we need to mention Creative Spark program, because it was a big flagship program for 5 years, where we worked with creative industries and educational institutions and provided grants. And this program actually nurtured 7 partnerships between UK and Azerbaijan, and various means, whether it was student mobility, exchange, it was forums, conferences, also strategic support on creative industries provided by Newcastle University and their partner here, Center for Analysis and Economic Reforms and Communications. So quite a big program that really laid the ground for the creative industry work. And the last but not the least, that's our creative producers, and that's every year we're selecting creative producers from various areas. So last year we had the head of theater department at the University of Arts. This year it's museum specialist, and usually we select 1 or 2 producers per year that are participating in our online course and face-to-face engagements with the British Council, and also traveling to the UK as a part of their program to develop bilateral ties. So this is what we've done. And of course, our work is focused on supportive creative industry development, and to name the priorities: craft, music, film, architecture, and of course, my colleague Elvin referenced to tourism that's thriving in Azerbaijan as well. We worked with individual artists, we've provided collaboration support, cultural institutions. We've also provided support in entering a global market. So actually, Emily, who is on the call, she participated in a number of initiatives, and she's been in our online initiatives. So thanks, Emily, for your active support to our programs. And I believe that British Council is playing a pivotal role in fostering these partnerships and unlocking potential through strategic development and fostering international cooperations. It's important to mention a couple of words on the consultancy report that I mentioned. So it's been 3 years from now. This was an important piece of work conducted by Gale Consultancy. So an expert, Jane Newbeginning, was a part of this consultancy work, and a quite in-depth document strategy was developed upon request of the Ministry of Culture of Azerbaijan, that actually had the objectives were to support the creative industries development and provide roadmap and the action plan how to work efficiently in that area. And the deliverable, as you can see on the slide, was the production of these 2 documents that were submitted to the Ministry of Culture and the core support for that particular area. So if you ask me, so what is the recommendation? The recommendation was actually to create a federation that would be focused on working with the industry representatives, and such federation luckily was created with the support of the Ministry of Culture. There is a Federation of Creative Industries and Enterprise that's supporting work of creative industry centers. Second recommendation was creating a national committee on creative industries, where the government would actively participate, involving stakeholders, involving businesses. So that committee would regulate the work that is yet to be developed, and the platform that would provide opportunities for the industry to learn about the opportunities. So various calls would be placed on the platform, and the Ministry of Culture actually created that platform for creative approaches, and has been setting up a number of forums. I'm actually speaking in a forum, in a Baku forum on intercultural dialogue to include creative industries, just on May 1st. So they've been hosting a series of events dedicated to fostering that perception of how to work with creative industries, how to support them, how to develop that strategic approach. So we see that the consultancy report was quite successful, and the Ministry of Culture is actually making a good use of it. So that's always exciting. And just to mention the important factor that UK is the partner of choice for the Ministry of Culture. We've seen that with Dilara throughout many years, whether it was theatre, whether it was museums training, whether it was working with disability component, people with disability, and supporting access provision to various cultural venues. So we've seen that there is high interest from the government and stakeholders in country to work with the UK. There aren't many independent stakeholders. There is Yarat Cultural Contemporary Center. Some museums are active. There aren't many players in the area of areas pretty much controlled under the Ministry of Culture. But having said that, there is a goodwill, again, working with the UK, and we've seen that there is high interest, and that Minister himself expressed the interest to visit UK and meet with potential partners in the UK Committee, and my colleague Elvin already mentioned that we're looking for various opportunities to bring the minister and support him in his interest working with the sector. And of course, new opportunities. My colleagues mentioned that COP and COP again. It's big for the British Council. We've been present at the COP since COP26 in Glasgow. We have a climate change team, and Dilar is actually our regional COP manager that's now supporting our regional team working in the area of youth education, skills development for COP. We are in the process of developing British Council Azerbaijan strategy, and that will definitely include education and culture in tackling climate change and supporting young people. So do stay tuned. We can join efforts in our cultural programs. And of course, this will be a great opportunity for the UK sector to showcase the projects if they're climate oriented, and of course to build partnerships and engage with the host country, which is Azerbaijan this year. And we take pride of being able to host COP in country. So stay tuned for new opportunities, and we're here to support you. Thank you very much indeed. I spoke too much, but I think a bit over the time. Apologies for that. Emily, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Nargiz. That was a wonderful presentation, and you didn't speak over time at all. Thank you so much for all the insight that you've shared with us this morning. I think together those two presentations give a really great overview of the opportunities and the kind of current state of the market. So I'd now like to introduce Jim Broughton, cultural consultant and one of a number of colleagues who joined a Experience UK and DBT trade mission to Azerbaijan in March of last year. As part of that trip, we were able to essentially go out and meet very senior members of the Ministry for Culture, including the First Deputy Minister and Acting Minister for Culture in Azerbaijan, and meet with many of the departments that Elvin mentioned in his presentation, that the people responsible for managing the tangible and intangible cultural heritage of Azerbaijan, and the State Tourism Department. So we were lucky to be able to make that initial contact with what was a new people in post at that point, people who were developing a new strategy for the first time, and hope that will bring opportunities for UK companies and for Experience UK members as that team settle and develop their strategic priorities, as Nargiz has outlined. Would like just to kind of get Jim's reflections on that trip and start with a question really about coming back from that opportunity. Jim, what did you see as the main kind of potential areas of engagement for UK companies in Azerbaijan?
Oh, thank you, Emily, and hi, everybody. Before I answer that question, Emily, I think it's probably worth saying to people online that the trip last year, there were 3 or 4 of us participating as the UK delegation, each with slightly different perspectives on the experience economy. So myself as a museums and culture and heritage person, and many people will know Dawn Foote from Catapult, who is very much more in the attractions and commercial space, and Joe Wright from Counterculture, who is a performing arts specialist and a governance specialist working with non-profit organisations. So between the 3 or 4 of us, I think we would have looked at and seen and responded to different things. So I'll try as best as I can to kind of represent those colleagues' views as well. Is that okay, Emily?
Absolutely perfect, Jim. Thank you very much.
I think reflecting on it a year after the visit, for me, we almost saw 2 kinds of opportunities. And one was very much related to the energy that's being spent, particularly by the commercial sector, in building big new capital projects. So real commitment to excellence, extraordinary scale of developments, international standard architects and designers and consultants investing in those things. And I think the challenge opportunity that comes with those things is how they then move from a project environment to an operational environment. So it's that whole thing about, you've got the hardware, now what do you do with the software to make these new investments really achieve their potential? So I think that's the first theme. I think the second one was much more related to the established cultural sector and the work that's being done by government. And Nargiz, you spoke about this a short time ago, in remodeling lots of the, I suppose, the governance and management of all of the state cultural bodies, from policy right down to operations in museums, to be fit for purpose, so they can be best of breed for the 21st century. So for me, that's the kind of the two types of opportunities.
Thank you. And in terms of just reflecting on kind of market maturity, did you have any thoughts on kind of what you saw in terms of kind of how mature is the market in terms of visitor perspective, in terms of its position as a catalyst for tourism, particularly with COP coming up and with the ambitions within Azerbaijan to build that part of their.
Well, I mean, I think as somebody who'd never been to Azerbaijan before, I was amazed by the richness of cultural heritage, and I think that's culture in the broadest sense, not just the landscapes and archaeology and built heritage of the country, but everything that kind of that culture carries, the intangibilities of music and food, and and the way people kind of relate to each other, and streetscape and life, and all of those things. I think as Joel maybe said at the beginning, I think for those of us in Europe, Azerbaijan is not a country we know more about, and I think as soon as that is externalized and the lid is lifted, I think there's a huge amount for international audiences, particularly with a platform like COP, to get excited about in Azerbaijan. So from an audience perspective, it's probably very immature beyond the domestic or the immediate kind of Caucasus area. In terms of, I think, maturity of cultural organizations, I think there's evidence, certainly I saw, of a kind of great professionalism in certainly the kind of the first task of cultural heritage organizations. So the protection of cultural heritage for the future, and a recognition of that's importance, and setting up all of the mechanisms that are required to do that. I think there's then the cusp, which is, once you've protected cultural heritage, how do you present it to audiences and get people to engage with it? And for me, that's the point where Azerbaijan perhaps is making only the beginnings of that journey. So learning how to engage audiences, how to grow audiences, how to market its offer, and how to then transfer that cultural equity down the generations through audience work.
Yeah, I completely kind of relate to those thoughts, Jim. I think you've hit the nail on the head. And I think also maybe I'd like to add, from a very kind of practical and tangible point of view, what I saw out there also was the sense that there's possibly great opportunities for UK companies to support in the rehabilitation of some of the cultural sites that have suffered, and also in kind of integrating the use of technology and digital experience across sites and across infrastructure. And which, of course, then also supports that kind of market positioning and audience engagement. So those were two areas which I felt were kind of interesting. And then that external, that how do you communicate that incredible richness of culture? It's like having the crude oil underneath the surface of the country, in terms of its kind of richness and extraordinary creativity and localism in terms of the craft and design. It's a really I'm just doing my own PR push for Azerbaijan. It's a really incredibly culturally rich and extraordinary place, and telling those stories is something that I think people who are experienced in master planning storytelling could really help. And then a final question, which is a follow-on, really, Jim, is where you've got deep experience of the international market as well as the UK market, but where do you feel that UK companies can really bring and add value for our colleagues in Azerbaijan?
So I think two themes again. So the obvious one is supporting capital projects. So and at every stage, through professional services, through design, through construction, through all of the things that are required to support the massive investments that Azerbaijan is making in tourist infrastructure. And we saw some of that, as you mentioned, on our visit last year. We said everybody from commercial developers through to government and city level things. So a huge amount of opportunity there. But I think also that it's the softer things too. Is what happens afterwards. So strategic support that can make organisations live in the long term. Advice in recruitment of people, or training and development for staff across the many kinds of professional and technical roles that are going to be needed in the country. Things like business planning and economic modelling for these new attractions for the long term to ensure they're financially and socially sustainable. Work on, as you mentioned, Emily, on marketing, on ensuring the story gets out, or perhaps partnerships whereby the new venues in Azerbaijan can partner with UK institutions to exchange content and programmes. And you mentioned this already, Nargiz, through the British Council. I think it's all of those things are opportunities, as they would be in any other nation where we have a kind of fully bilateral kind of relationship exchange.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jim. Now, I mean, we could talk about this forever, but I think it would be very, very nice to open up at this point, 10 minutes to go, open up for questions. So if people could put their questions either in the chat or in the questions panel. I'm just going to give two seconds to see if anybody has any questions. I see Pete Chapman is keen for there to be a recording, which there will be. Maybe while we're waiting to see if there are any questions coming through, is there anything, Joel, coming right back to you, we started with you, is there anything that you would like to reflect on in terms of the visit that Jim's kindly just spoken through, and what you see as the kind of potential next steps and outcomes for UK companies based on that fact-finding mission? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. So I think in terms of next steps, I think the Museum and Heritage Show is potentially a good opportunity, because there'll be a number of buyers that are kind of cross-cutting that are coming across for that particular event, and it's a good opportunity to follow up. I think some of the projects that we took the delegation to, like Dreamland, are progressing. So I think since your visit, you remember the trampoline park you went to, that is now open. Yep. I think the spa is now open. And now they've got those projects up out of the way. I think they're now starting to think a bit more about some of the areas that we talked about during the visit. So we'll be following up with those. And I think more generally, I think a year on, I think when the delegation came across, the minister had only been in the position for about a year. I'd only just been appointed, actually, I think a few weeks. And now a year on, I expect he has a much clearer idea about what it is he wants to do, and the role that the UK can do in supporting that. I think COP29 is potentially an interesting opportunity. I know in Dubai there was a lot of storytelling that went on in the expo, because the expo was just a kind of conference centre, and I think there was a lot of kind of creative input that went into that. The COP29 in Baku is in a much more of a compressed time frame, So how much time they will have to think about some of these more kind of creative ideas is unclear at this stage. But we've introduced at least kind of 20 British companies to the organisers since January this year, and there is kind of some of them are signing contracts already, and we expect more to follow. Like I said, I suspect the kind of the entertainment around COP will be thought of at a little bit of a later stage. But we have the relationships. We're creating in the process of setting up our own COP unit, and we have pretty good links into the government already. So I think that could be an opportunity a little bit further down the line once they've got the basics underway and agreed.
That's wonderful, Elvin. And with Dilara's new role as the COP kind of point of contact in the British Council, maybe we can also kind of, Dilara, is there anything that you would like to add in terms of your expectations around COP and how the British Council can support with those relationships?
Thank you, Emily. Actually, I just started yesterday. Yesterday was my first working day, to be honest. Yeah. Within the COP, I agree that the best probably scenario would be to work with the existing partners, because we don't have many here in Azerbaijan. So especially we work with the biggest one, like Ministry of Culture, Haydar Aliyev Foundation, and they play a crucial role in kind of a preparation for COP activities. So we had a discussion with Nargiz yesterday, and we kind of try to list the partners we intend to work with. So again, the same partners Elvin mentioned, I should say in his presentation. So I fully agree that the biggest partners, it will be easier to work with them. Also, just to confirm again that art sector, cultural sector in Azerbaijan predominantly supported by the state. It's good and bad, I should say. The good thing is that because it's supported by state, it gives kind of a limitation for private sector to step in, because they feel that because government is supported, museums, there is kind of a lot, kind of a small space for organizations to support this. I mean Azerbaijani private sector. I know, like, for example, BP supported museum sector, but in terms of support is kind of a very tiny contribution. If we talk about biggest partners like BP, for example. So yes, the strategy would be to continue to work with established big partners like Ministry of Culture, Tourism Agency, also educational partners, plus Haydar Aliyev Foundation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dilara. That's great. And thank you for that great insight just one day into your new role. Thank you so much, Dilara. That's great. And thank you for that great insight just one day into your new role. Wonderful. So I think we're coming to the end of the event. We're coming to the end of the relay. Event. Are you hearing me twice? I'm getting a lot of relay. Are you hearing me twice? Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I think on that say goodbye. We'll say goodbye. Thank you so much to Joel Derbyshire, Elvin Raziyev, Dilara Ibrahimova, and Jim Broughton. And stay in touch with Experience UK to hear the latest opportunities. Oh, hold on, there's a few questions. Sorry. Oh. Is it possible to share contact details that can be shared with companies looking at the territory? Joel and Elvin, would that be you?
Yeah, you can. Any British company can reach out to us, and we will talk about the opportunities in Azerbaijan more generally, or any particular opportunities that you're looking to follow up with.
Brilliant. So, shall I put your email in the chat?
Yeah, we'll send you a general. Perhaps we'll send you a general email address, and then people can follow up directly from that.
Thank you so much. And then there's a question from Keith Thomas, who visited the State Historical Architectural Reserve and looked at the five UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Are there still opportunities around the UNESCO sites? Elvin and Nargiz.
Derbyshire State Reserves. We met with them in December last time, but I think already they executed few projects in these state reserves. But what I can do, we have their contact details and communicate with them to ask if there is something new and new opportunities. If Nargiz has something to add, please go ahead.
Likewise. We can
You're on mute, Emily.
Sorry, Elvin, I wonder if you could mute. Great. So yes, I think that brings us to the end of the seminar. Thank you to Nargiz, Dilara, Jim, Elvin, and Joel for those really great insights. And we'll post to participants a general FCDO email address to follow up opportunities directly with the team in country, and please also contact us at Experience UK. We'll keep our members abreast of the next steps and the opportunities around the Museum and Heritage Show. So thank you all, thank you for coming, and have a great rest of your Thursday.